What's been happening?
So it's been a busy week. We are preparing for the Digital Government of Africa event. I believe this is going to be one of the most spectacular events in 2023, especially across the African continent when you consider there'll be representatives from 30 plus countries, ministers of finance, tech, and other relevant foreign affair ministers, which are there to provide more inclusion for the African continent. More importantly, find ways of improving the technology, bring people up that are having, probably the better word for it, an unbanked population. They don't have access to ID, hence the reason mobile money payments are so popular in Africa. And we are there provisionally to, A, introduce the Clink Pay system. The system is revolutionary. It allows every African country to keep their own gold within their own central bank. It allows them to make payments in their own currency, backed by gold, protected not only by the gold in terms of the deflationary and inflationary value against the US dollar, but more importantly, all the records are kept on blockchain. So now you have all these individual governments to have access to the people that are sending the money, the access to take taxes at source, collect any data they require. And, it's trying to make the payment systems across Africa digital and up to date for what is a booming economy. In fact, the mobile money payment economy is growing at around 17% per annum.
Per annum, wow. And this obviously mobile money payment, you said 30 countries. Are they all the African countries or are they?
All African countries.
All African
the
countries.
summit is the digital government or DGA, Digital Government of Africa.
I never asked you, but what was the need to create something to help everyone? Where did it originally come from of why you wanted to start this journey of creating something new?
So back in 21, my original plan was to create a gold-backed stablecoin to fight against the likes of the USDT, USDC, BUSD, which is all backed by the dollar. And ultimately, I don't believe in the dollar. We'll get to that in a second. But what I also discovered is, certainly across the continent of Africa, you have an unbanked population. Most people use mobile telephones to make payments. So even if they're not on a smartphone, the old analog phone, without an internet connection, you can send money through SMS, text, or USSD. Now, all those transactions are going to happen anyway, but our goal was to improve it, make it cheaper, make it transparent, and back it by physical gold. And what is the value of doing this? Number one, by backing it by physical gold, you're taking away any inflationary risk. More importantly, you're taking away any currency volatility between each other's currency. So, I might be trading in, let's say, the South African rand. It could be the Moroccan dirham. So now these two countries have completely different currencies. You're talking about two currencies, different languages, different economics, just different dynamics. But why can they not trade? So if we have a system in place that allows the big payment providers or certainly the big institutions, whether it be the banks or the central governments, to transact their own currency, gold-backed, and they're holding their own gold within their own country, doesn't that protect, the currency? And ultimately, if there is then a fallout in the US dollar, which is the reserve currency of Africa and the rest of the world, these guys are going to come out shining and shooting. So, I think most people, that the word de-dollarization was put forward, I think, in the late 80s, 90s, but it's probably getting a lot more momentum now. It might not happen for another 5 years, 10 years, or 15 or 20 years, but ultimately every currency has to change, and it happens. It's all over history, and it's just the way the world works.
We'll come on to America in a second, because I know that you were talking about the dollar. Why is it that the pound and the dollar are probably the only two strongest currencies left? What is it about those two currencies that have had them to last such a long period of time?
The dollar is only, it's not been around as long as the pound. So no, let me answer that part. Both of them are not strong.
Okay.
So the dollar's pretty, it's been printed relentlessly, $35 trillion worth of money that's been printed. Just look at the gold sitting in the Fort Knox.
Yes, this is what I was coming
it's
on to.
around 8,000 ton. It's only worth $500 billion. So you have $500 billion worth of gold. You have $35 trillion worth of debt. You can never match them back, right? That train's left the station.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the pound. The pound is actually the only currency that's lasted since paper money was printed. But again, you talk about the pound, and Gordon Brown sold, I think, most
Of our gold
the
reserves.
gold reserves at a ridiculously low price. I think it was $250 or pounds. I can't remember, but it was basically he sold the nation's wealth.
Who did he sell it to again?
No idea. I cannot. It was sold to, create liquidity within the system. I can't remember the whole story. I'd probably have to go back and read. But I remember it was sold at almost in the
Pennies
that
on the dollar,
period,
right?
During that period, it was about the lowest it could have been for him to sell it, and that was our Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yeah, and it's obviously on the topic of gold. I read a form, which I know we're going to talk immensely about, which is that the BRICS countries are coming together and they're all basically putting their gold together. And they said, these are all the countries that are in BRICS. This is how much gold they have. And then you look at America, that with all of this is the saying that all of the BRICS nations combined doesn't even come close to what America have singly. So I think the BRICS countries, a rough estimate was about 6,000 tons, and America have about 8,133 tons. So I just want to get your thoughts on that and what your brain is thinking about that situation.
Okay, let's look at the facts. So they introduced FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt recalled notes and all the gold from the Americans or the citizens of America in the 30s. That was to shore up the gold reserves to prove that the dollar was backed by gold and have some sort of a backing, right? Since then, they've been in one particularly, the end of the World War II. So some money was there. And that's how they stamped their authority as a world reserve currency, because they started in the early, I think, 20s as the world changed into the world reserve currency. In 71, they disbanded the gold system, the Bretton Woods system. In 73 or 74, they had this big Hollywood-style show of 150 reporters turning up at Fort Knox, taking pictures of only one area. And of many
I remember
doors.
the door where you see it open and there's gold stacks there, about 12 and a half
Nobody
kilos,
weighed
right?
it, nobody checked serial numbers, nobody did nothing, but it was all very Hollywood-esque.
Sure.
Pictures and lights and bells and whistles. And since then, I think the last audit, or by media's standard, or by what you can see on the internet and what is available in terms of public information, there was another audit in 86 where they just said the seals are still on the door. So nobody went inside. You're not allowed inside. So the seals are on the door, and that's every year. The seals are on the door. Now, I'm going to tell you today, I have this much in my house, and you're welcome to take a picture. And I could just put some Toblerone bars covered in gold paper, and you can take a picture, and next year when you come, I'll say, it's still there, and it's sealed, but you can't enter it. I put a seal on it, but the seal's still there. And it's still got the same serial number on the seal. Nothing's been broken, nothing's been tampered, nothing's been changed, because apparently you can't make the same seal again. Or so
Just
I'm
like
told.
you can't make another.
And in the same way, Germany requested their gold a couple of years back, and they were told to wait 7 years. And at the same time, many countries were asking for their repatriation of their cash, gold, in the 70s. And at the time, it was Nixon. He couldn't pay, so they disbanded the system so they could make the payments and effectively not print, but print money is the untechnical term.
Sure.
But create money in the system to pay off the countries.
Sure.
But nobody has verified that gold in 50 years. Now, if that doesn't sound a little bit off to you, and ultimately, if you're then in a position where you've printed 35 trillion, but only $500 billion is really sitting in gold, you've actually got nothing to boast about. Now, one day, let's say next week or next year, in the next decade, we all find out that actually there's nothing in the vault. That's why they didn't want to pay Germany. They wanted a 7-year...
to try and get the gold.
Well, I don't know what the plan is, but 7 years just sounds like a nice number, doesn't it? Oh, we'll pay you in 7 years. But ultimately, that would be the collapse of the US dollar. So now you're in a position where you cannot tell anyone. There is probably high-level officials that know there's nothing there. And many people would see. You're going to get two sides of the coin. The proof is in the evidence. If you have something, you would show it. You wouldn't just talk about the seal on the door.
Especially America, they're very bold.
You wouldn't just push off the allegations. You wouldn't completely anytime high level officials or certain members of the Congress are asked about any of these things, they just push it aside. So there's obviously some problem. You can't have a system that doesn't want to tell you the truth. And this is exactly what it's boiling down to. And even if they did, what does it prove? It proves what? You've got $500 billion, but $35 trillion worth of debt. People are still going to be like, and what? So they've lost either way. So now the best course of action really is to just stay stumm. You can't actually say anything now. Either way, they've lost.
There's something hilarious that I say, which is lie till you die. They'll take it to the grave, basically. But
don't you think it's interesting they didn't want to pay back Germany?
Well, I think their excuse might be, Germany want to use it for bad reasons.
Well, Germany isn't exactly a third world country,
yes,
and
exactly.
On the red list anyway.
Sure, but
they used that against. Well, I think it was UK that used it against Venezuela because they were holding the gold for Venezuela. This is another thing. So you have these countries, and the reason that gold was moved from Europe into America during World War II was because of the war that was going on, and they thought, okay, there's a safe haven for our country's wealth. Let's put it over there. So, at the end of the day...
Have we given it back now? Or
No, I don't think so.
So maybe we lost our gold reserves, but then we took it from someone else.
Maybe, this is something we should fact check before we make a comment. But
Yeah.
the last time I heard it was 7 years. Perhaps that has changed by now.
This is from Germany.
That was I believe it was Germany. I believe it was 7 years. And as far as I know, or I've read, I haven't seen anything to contradict what I'm saying, unless I'm wrong. I could be. And they could have $500 billion worth of gold, in which case still $35 trillion worth of debt makes it, in terms of backing the dollar, worthless.
Worthless. So what would, obviously, you're quite understanding of all of this. Where would the world currency go if we're not going to back it? Because you can't back all of the currency in the world. It's not possible because there's too much debt.
You can't even
everywhere.
back it with gold anymore.
So is there any type of solution that any government could do to fix the issue with that? Printing money, they're just basically making money out of thin air. It's numbers on a screen now.
Now, I'm afraid that train has well and truly left the station. CBDC, central bank digital currencies, are not the solution, because ultimately you're now giving a digital toy instead of basically where they had a typewriter, they've now got a computer doing the same thing. Whereas the paper was coming out the typewriter, now they've got a computer putting zeros. So how does the CBDC solve anything? They're never going to put an open source blockchain. They're never going to tell you any information in the background. It's a one-way street. Now that information collected is a completely one-way street.
So do you believe that what you've created is not going to fix the problem entirely, but it's going to give protection to a lot of people?
We can only fix what gold is available per country and what they're holding and what they're willing to back in terms of trade settlement or in their mobile money payments and whatever. But ultimately, no, you cannot fix the world problem, but it's better than nothing. You're better off having 30%, 20%, depending on the size of your economy, nation, and how much gold reserves you have. You can fix that part, but you can't fix everything, unfortunately.
Very interesting.
And you've got to be realistic about it. There's only $12 trillion worth of gold in the world. So unless there's some despot somewhere who's mined it illegally for the last decade, 2 decades, and there's another double,
it's got 100,000 tons somewhere sitting. Unlikely.
Then, that's still not going to fix the world problem.
Yeah.
But you can only do what is available. You can make the system as good as you can. You can introduce a payment that is gold backed, that is multi-currency, that works with governments, that improves payments, that's cheaper, faster, and transparent and economical. But you're not going to solve the issue of the world. No.
You talk about a lot about CBDCs and crypto, and obviously the the falling of the US dollar, and you say it might happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Where do you see, because I want to bring on to crypto, where
Could
do you
happen
see...
in 2 years or 1 year.
Could happen tomorrow for we know. You never know when your last day is, they say. Where do you see crypto moving to within the everyday type of person? Because I think it's mainstream, but it's not completely mainstream that everyone uses crypto. Like a lot of people have bank accounts. So when do you think the switch is going to happen where
So
people really
it's
stop using cash?
It's interesting you ask that. The unbanked population are quicker to adapt to crypto as opposed to the bank population.
Why do you think that is?
Because they have no other means and methods of transferring money. So a crypto transaction where they can go to a kiosk, give them fiat money or paper money, transfer into one of the stable coins or even Bitcoin, Ethereum, or one of the popular tokens, for them it's easier because it doesn't require any paperwork. To get a bank account requires ID, an address, and some people in the world don't have access to an address, unfortunately. They don't have credit rating. They don't have that ability to, or the stability to have a house and a home and a rating and a job. Some people just don't have it, but they still need to make payments. Fortunately, fiat is kind of slowly being phased out, if you want to call it that, and at some point, maybe in a decade, will probably be obsolete. So this unbanked population, not just in Africa, but in probably South America, India, the whole world, there's unbanked population in America and UK, everywhere. So they'll probably resort to what other option they have. They'll have apps in their phones which allow them to buy credits via fiat for now, and at some point, whenever that system changes, it'll change.
And do you think the statistic that I read in the news, which is crypto should grow and the assets of Bitcoin will grow about 1,200% by 2028? Do you see that happening, or do you think that's an unrealistic figure?
It's very hard to say. When the internet was first introduced in the late 80s, it really came mainstream in the 90s, right? There was a lot of skepticism. This is never going to work. This emailing, what is this emailing? Before we used to post letters, used to send brochures.
Now everything's on WhatsApp or
Everything
Telegram.
then went into emails. From emails, it went into WhatsApp. Text messages to
then
WhatsApp.
text to iMessage, then WhatsApp came out.
Blackberries in between.
Do you remember the time where WhatsApp tried to charge you 79 pence and everyone had a massive revolt, and then they made it free afterwards?
So, things will change. Things will get better. Blockchain will definitely improve people's lives. AI will improve people's lives. But it's not necessary you have mass adoption, because ultimately, as the old technology becomes obsolete, people have no choice. So the adoption will be automatic. You don't need to convert people. They'll have to convert themselves.
It'll be inevitable. If you want to do this, you have to. It's like if you need something, you need to go book a flight. You can't call anyone now. It's like speak to someone on an app. They don't give you an option.
When was the last time you were able to do anything without a mobile phone? Most people don't have home phones anymore.
Well, yeah, like a landline. I mean, they have them here in Dubai for offices, but it's very rare that you have a landline. I mean, no one needs it. Everything is done on a mobile.
Yeah. Everyone has a landline number, but do they use it?
No. It's funny, in my place back in London, we had a landline. I was like, what am I paying for this for? They're like, oh, you need it for the internet. I'm like, no, I don't. Just give me the internet. Yeah. Now you just have the internet.
So there's a fine point. And I'll give you another example, right? Ask somebody younger than, let's say, 17.
This and this.
Yeah. That
what does your kids do?
Shocks me.
What do your kids do?
I haven't asked them yet. I'll ask them.
Yeah. So.
But I saw it. I saw a kid the other day, and you ask them, how do you show somebody you're on the phone?
And we go like this, right?
Yeah. So
that's strange, right? How the world changes.
It'll change.
What's your obviously keeping on the crypto topic? What's your view on PayPal bringing in a stable coin and your thoughts on it?
I think it was long overdue. PayPal have a huge customer base. I think the introduction of a stablecoin by PayPal at this stage is a bit slow. Just shows the red tape within the company, perhaps.
The big stuff.
This should have been done 3 years back. Why are you bringing it out in 2023? Just doesn't make sense.
In a slow period of the market.
PayPal was one of the first people to make electronic payments easy across the globe. upload your card so nobody can see anything else. You can make payments, and then you missed crypto payments. You missed stable coins. Like, well, they had that other division, right? Venmo was Venmo.
Yeah, they're connected with Venmo in America. That is one thing that is super weird. Obviously, I know America is a bit like Dubai in terms of their payment and like bank transfers. Dubai is actually a lot faster because you can do quick bank transfers that take an hour or so. London is much faster with instant payments, and
Backs.
yeah, it's way faster. The two questions I want to ask: why is the US so reluctant to change their system where it gives accessibility because not just international payments for local payments between two people? Is there a particular reason, or what is the thought process there? Because it's like 50 years old now. The same thing with
If you think
checks.
about even the telco industry in the US, they were the last to get out of the analog into digital. It's just the fact that there's probably some powerhouse of decision makers near the top that own some of the top industries, and they don't want to make the change because it costs money. It's probably as
money and
simple as that.
a
It
click of a
really,
button.
if it ain't broken, don't change it. And really, if you think about it, because we used to have, we had SIM cards before the US. They were still on the analog phones. There was no SIM cards. There was,
Even the micro SD cards for the new
all
phones.
of that came quite. It was a little bit later on in the US. If you go to the US, I'm sure they have 5G, but everything tends to be a bit slower.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. It's
Payment systems can be better. There is a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of, and what I don't understand, you have Silicon Valley, all the tech is there. But
because
then
they use Venmo like PayPal, but they get paid in Venmo, and then they have to wait 4 or 5 days for it to hit their account. Is it just that the companies are just trying to hold on to the cash for as long as possible?
perhaps, I don't know. I don't know enough to comment on that, but it could be.
It feels like the US is maybe one of the giants, but they're also not. And wanted to ask you the question, which I never asked you before. Do you think the US is trying to kill crypto at the moment? Do you think they don't want it? They want to try and hold on to their cash as much as possible, or do you think they're
100%.
yeah, okay.
Well, they're completely. The SEC is. You want to say in a line is anti-crypto almost. There is no basis. There is no merit in the SEC getting involved. I think we've talked about this before. They're in the securities business, they're in the stocks and shares business, and yeah, there is some similarities. But this, blockchain, crypto, the industry is a completely different game, and it's multi-jurisdictional. Doesn't specifically have a jurisdiction, so that trying to police the crypto space is a little bit.
I think they control the markets because they obviously hold a lot of crypto, even though they say that they don't, and they can fluctuate the market by holding. There's not that much money in crypto now. There's a substantial amount, but if a country holds a substantial amount,
if you were a government with the biggest reserve currency floating around the world, you'd want your CBDC out before you let crypto get its day. And if crypto continues to grow at that same speed and momentum and you cannot track it, then how will you make the CBDC successful?
Yeah, because it's interesting. It's another topic I was going to bring on that. Bitcoin sustains about $26,000. So even though it's not at what it was, it's sustaining a good level at the moment. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think they're worried that people are sort of becoming a bit more confident within it and they're starting to push money back into the market?
I don't think this is the concern over crypto and payments. You have to understand the majority of the people that make the decisions are 50 plus, 60, and they don't like crypto. It's as simple as that. It's nothing to do with actually it's all to do with generational. People just don't want to change and adopt, and they feel like crypto's a scam, crypto is untrustworthy, it's untraceable, it's this, it's that. But then the blockchain is completely traceable, right?
But they use blockchain on actual bank accounts to be able to transfer where money payments are coming from.
Blockchain is easier to track than a bank transfer. It's so much easier, right?
Click a button and it's open
ultimately,
to everyone.
if you had to launch your central bank digital dollar or the Fed dollar or the Fed coin, then of course you don't want Ripple or Bitcoin or anyone else taking your space. It's just the way the government would want to work, and it's not going to be perhaps the president making the decision, but the minions along the line would definitely be stonewalling the finance ministers, and the ones that are stonewalling are probably the head of the, what do you call it, the heads of the separate departments.
Yeah, head of states and stuff like that, or secretaries and stuff like that.
Yeah, the kind of main ministers or senators would probably block all these things because ultimately they're trying to protect the dollar.
Yeah, well, they're
You know what? Actually, if you think about it, it boils down to the dollar. You let cryptos run wild, then what happens to the dollar?
goes down, loses its
And you have
value.
all these countries. The BRICS are gaining huge momentum. The BRICS are, according to Jim O'Neill, who coined the term BRICS, they're not ready to create any single currency or a gold-backed payment system, and that's fine. Whether they are ready or not, eventually they may be.
It's inevitable. Do you? One question I wanted to ask, and we're going to come on to London shortly because obviously that's our home. Do you think that the UK will join the BRICS nations, or do you think it's
Never.
unlikely?
Never.
Is that just because we've always had our own currency and it's not needed, or
No,
what's your
it's
thoughts
just
on it?
because if they're allies with the US, and the US is anti-BRICS, so the UK will remain anti-BRICS, as will many European countries like Germany. And it's just the way it is. It'll be the West against almost the East. And if you look at it, it'll be more sort of South America, Africa, Asia, Russia, or, well,
Do you think
it comes
Dubai
into
would
Russia,
join it?
Eurasia.
Do you think Dubai would join or unlikely?
Dubai has already applied to join.
Already applied. Okay, wow. So they're creating a super powerhouse basically for
Well,
a new.
you've got Saudi, you've got the UAE,
And when
you've
this-
got
yeah,
Russia, India, China. Like, if you take a collective of the population and then you put that GDP together, it's almost half the world GDP now as well.
So
it's,
do you
it's
think the
kind-
plan
it's
is we're going to
it
have
is a powerhouse.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to have one currency or still different currencies?
A single currency failed, in my opinion, in Europe. Where we had multiple currencies. Then came the euro. The European Central Bank hasn't done anything amazing. And maybe it's only been 30 odd years since it's been around. So maybe there's still time and it'll change and it'll get better. I don't see it. You have different languages, different economies, different politics, different geopolitics, different agendas. So if you have all of these things, what was the new world order, if you want to call it that, or the vision of the new world order is actually creating one world currency, one world economy, single currency of Asia, single currency of Europe, and single currency of North America, South America. Let's just say three currencies in the world, and it's a 50-year plan. There's something probably planned to dominate and control from a centralized bank, because that's how you control the money. So the European
flow in
Central
and out,
Bank,
yeah.
if you're controlling the people who work in the European Central Bank, the likes of Christine Lagarde, who's always had very prominent positions. She was the head of IMF as well. What's to say she's not getting her call shots from somebody else?
Yeah.
And what to do, what to say. Anyway, it is
It's
what
like
it is.
it's like Biden, really. I feel that he's a puppet. He's getting the cool shots. So I'm going to be interested to see if he gets re-elected.
Biden's a sad situation because he's definitely not himself.
For sure.
It's sad to watch the leader of the world. He's not, he's not coherent at times.
Yeah, where he there's lots of instances. You're talking about people hitting back and the differences. There was a big news article that I think it was $200 million that was stolen from a crypto fund. I think it was called MIX. Do you think there's going to ever be prevention on that, or do you think it's one of those things that you can track where it went, but you won't be able to get it? So just it'd be interesting to know your thoughts on when you hear these big crypto hacks that have happened. Do you think it's the fund's fault? Do you think it's going to make the system better in turn? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, ultimately, you could insure it.
Buy?
Well, you could use one of the big insurers like Lloyd's of London.
Yeah.
Why can't you insure it?
Do Lloyd's of London insure crypto
I'm
now?
not sure. This is a question for them. So Lloyd's of London, if you're watching, is a new avenue for you guys. I think some big insurance companies do crypto insurance now.
Okay.
Against hacks and stuff like that. it's available for sure.
Interesting. Where do you see the next couple of years going in terms of your Clink Gold payment system? Because I want to come back onto what you've created, which is to do with crypto, how you've created something really unique. Where do you envision it, and where do you hope for it in the next couple of years?
So my focus is to complete on a couple of countries. Ultimately, the pilots will be done in a few countries within Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And as I always say, we have a BRICS-ready solution. BRICS don't need to create a single currency. They don't need to create the gold-backed payment, because we've pretty much created the whole infrastructure. And where they're talking about 2 years, we have the ready solution today. But to do that, we need to show them that it's available, it works, it's easily accepted already, and we're doing tons of transactions. So
Will you bring this mobile money payment system to India? Is that
so
the plan?
India's a very unique model. There was a very wonderful book that was written maybe a couple of decades back, if I remember the title, We Are Like That Only. I can't remember the author's name. And many big giants, by the way, failed in India. Coca-Cola failed.
Is there no Coke in India?
Initially, they came to India. The main drink of India was Thumbs Up.
Okay.
So it's similar looking, but more sugary and sticky. Anyway, so they failed. They went away, came back, and then they succeeded. Many humongous companies have come to India and failed. Why? Nobody quite knows. And this book was trying to deconstruct why some big multinational companies tend to fail in India. And look at Coke, and it's just crazy. And I think another good example was the likes of Deutsche Bank came in there. They failed, sat there a couple of years. No business through the doors, closed up, came back a few years later, and it was fine. And nobody's quite understood the dynamics of India is different. So they have a payment system in India known as UPI, Universal Payment International. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but ultimately this payment system, it allows you to, it's like a mobile money payment system, but it works. I think it's recently been shared to some other countries to pilot the UPI system. And it's just a very simple, like a mobile money payment system, the same system. And it's and India is a great place to pilot anything, because you have a population of 1.4 billion people. And if it works there, and it works on that transactional level in rupees, which are
peanuts.
Yeah, it's you've got something. I would say to them, if you want our API, we can go back it for you, but that's another story. But India is a different animal.
And is that something that you want to get into, or is it you want to make sure that you've got Africa completely sorted because that's your main focus?
I like Africa because Africa has the problem. I think India is already finding their feet in solution.
Okay.
So you've got one continent that has 54 countries wishing to trade in different currencies that require a system that is able to let everyone trade. Everyone has security because the payments are gold-backed. Everyone is able to see that there is no issue because it's on blockchain. There's no corruption in the background or anything like that. And India has resolved it on their own using this UPI system. So the economic, the dynamic, the industry, the country is different, and the problem doesn't exist
the same as it does in Africa.
In Africa, yeah, it's a different. Same population size,
sure,
almost similar, but the politics and the different currencies don't exist.
Like you say,
so much in India.
Each place is different. They have different problems.
Look, you've got to look at India as the biggest democracy in the world. They're able to, sort out the payment system that works for 1.4 billion people. They've sent a rocket to the moon, and they're just ahead of the game. They're I think they'll be one of the superpowers.
Do you think they actually sent the topic I want to come on before we go on to the rocket, because that's another topic. But obviously India's put quite a heavy tax on crypto. Do you think that India will be able to recover in time, or do you think slowly but surely this tax will go away for India?
I think the whole tax system in India is quite heavy anyway. The problem with the tax system in India is people tend to circumvent it. So that's why they introduced such high taxes. If everyone paid their taxes, then it probably wouldn't be as high. The majority of people try to evade the tax is the problem.
I think that's why iPhones are so expensive in India, especially, right? Because of imports and exports taxes.
There is huge import taxes, I believe, but if you look at the number of billionaires in places like Mumbai or Delhi
Yeah.
or other places in South India, you'll be shocked.
Why is India got such heavy taxes, especially for a country that uses something like rupees, where and a lot of their population is poor? Why is it they don't want things imported to their country?
Because obviously you want to drive your own demand for your own economy. Why would you want to import a Mercedes when you can drive a Tata? Tata owns Land Rover, Jaguar, and a few others by now. But ultimately, you want them to buy the local brand to fuel the local economy, to obviously give everyone locally jobs
Makes
and all the
sense.
rest of it. So, luxury watches, all luxury goods are going to be taxed heavily. But, if you look at the dynamics, you're talking again of running a country of 1.4 billion people. How else will you support the economy if you rely on imports? You've got to create industry. You've got to create jobs. You've got to create things for people to do, factories and everything else that goes around the industry. And to do that, you want to make sure that the industries within your country are booming, and that's what they've done, right? So of course they're going to put a tax on imported goods. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I guess so. You are right.
Because also the other part is the division between the rich and the poor is big.
It's humongous,
There is
right?
a middle class, of like any other country, there is a middle class, but there is a big difference. So these guys don't care. They don't care, you buy a Cullinan for $500,000 or $1 million. To them, it's peanuts. I can tell you the money in certain pockets of Delhi, Mumbai, and other, sort of high value places, even Gujarat of India. The money is insane. You'll never hear about how many billionaires are sitting that nobody knows about, and he'll be wearing a pair of slippers and a very regular shirt, and this guy will be worth hundreds of millions. You will never know.
What do these guys usually? Because you've traveled to India quite a bit. What is the normal jobs that of these people that they've done? What is it that they do usually? Obviously, it's always mixed, especially when you're dealing. But you've obviously got these little clusters. Because I've met a couple, and they're usually in tech or they own a lot of real estate. I think they say come to Dubai, but there's actually come to India. There's a lot of Indian billionaires here as well, for sure.
The short answer is everything.
Mm.
So it's not just tech, it's everything. You look at Reliance, they control coal, they control nearly half the like any vertical you can think of. They've got their finger in every pie. They even own some fashion brands. You look at obviously they're massive in tech, but look at all the other industries as well. The manufacturing that comes out, the pharmaceutical. You look at the diamond industry, you look at the jewelry industry, you look at the gold industry, you look at farming, rice, wheat, wine. They produce wine. It's a yeah.
There's too much to go on, but you
there's
mentioned
everything.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Obviously, I know they have a lot of gold. They have a lot of natural resources. But one thing that is booming at the moment, I want to talk about because you're in the sort of gold jewelry industry, is they're starting now to build an entire new, like their own mini economy within diamonds and lab-grown diamonds. So it'd be interesting to get your thought on lab-grown diamonds and how India have been able to create a whole new market from creating, and they're big facilities that they're creating. It's very interesting how they're created. But what's your thoughts? Do you think it's just India's a secret hidden pocket that no one really gives credit to, or do you think this is something new that they knew they could deal with?
So 8 out of 10 diamonds in the world are polished in Surat in India, which is a small part of Gujarat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You then have another part of India that in Mumbai that already imports, exports a lot of the world diamonds. Naturally, if the market is moving into the lab-grown industry, India is going to be the first on it. They're entrepreneurs. They're very savvy. They're they know what they're doing, then they know how to make money. So if the lab grown market, you suddenly have Joe Blow in the road and he wants to buy his wife a rock that looks like 50 grand for 5 grand, that's the market now, right? Everyone wants to be bling bling, but they don't want to have to pay for it. So that's what a lab grown gives you. Unfortunately, the lab grown doesn't hold that much resale value. Potentially could be
Worth nothing.
well, not nothing. It's going to have something, but it's never going to be like a real diamond, because a real diamond has some fault in it. It'll have some. Only a very rare diamond will be flawless, but there's going to be some sort of flaw in it, right? So the lab-grown market is effectively just servicing the lower end of the market that want to look expensive. It's just another vertical.
It's another vertical.
So
but
it's like you know, why do people wear silver that is gold plated in the same way? Because you know they want to look expensive. Why do people wear you know, certain things to look expensive? Why do people have fake watches? Why do China produce or you know, Turkey? When you go to Turkey, they're trying to sell you fake watches. China, even Thailand, you know, these sort of countries, they're trying to. There's a lot of fakes in the world. Why do people wear fakes?
It's because they can't afford the real thing and they want to perceive the image that they are actually who they are. But it's interesting that you say that, is because when people wear fakes, they're not just selling themselves, they're selling the goal of ever being able to try and get to that goal of reaching it honestly. So what they do is they say, oh, let me just buy the fake Gucci bag because it's the same thing, but you know it's not the same thing. And for someone that, like, I'll give you an example. This one's really, I was here in Dubai, and this is one of my favorite stories here. I met him and he was wearing a Patek Philippe. For people that don't know, Patek Philippe is like a 100k watch upwards, British and dollars wise. And I had a great conversation with him. He gave me the best chat you've ever heard, saying, oh, I have this business. And then at the end of the meeting, we got into a Mitsubishi Entourage, like a really old one from a rental car. And what doesn't make sense to me is that you'll perceive the image of being rich and wealthy, but then, not that he probably didn't, but no one has 100k on his wrist and then drives a £5,000 car. That makes absolutely no sense. And when I spoke to him and I said, why do you do this? He said, oh, because it makes people respect me. When I said, you know, I respected you without the watch. It's not about the watch, it's about the man. And I said, the second that you got into that Mitsubishi, I knew that you weren't the same person, because you're trying to portray this image of someone that you're not, and you'll lose respect for someone instantly. I said, you'll do better not wearing any jewelry than wearing something that's not real. And that's how people think that we wear real things, which is kind of interesting.
Well, it goes back to the point. Real money never wears big labels. They don't bandy around any of the Italian brands. They don't bandy around. They obviously drive nice cars.
Sure. But they wear stuff without logos. Yeah,
they'll wear things that are not. The material will be amazing.
Yeah,
but it won't be branded, and it'll be probably tailor-made 90% of the time, or even if it's off the shelf, or they wear hoodies or whatever. They don't care. Real money doesn't care.
Yeah, they don't care. Do you think that I would say within the last 4 years since COVID happened, do you feel like the stream of new money to younger children and to younger people has sort of made everyone have like a FOMO, fear of missing out, and being like, well, if I don't have this and I haven't got to this, then I am not successful yet? Do you think that's a really warped way to look at it, or do you think success comes at different times in people's life and they just need to ride the journey and not focus on other people?
The problem lies in social media. So we are sitting here promoting whatever, looking at, talking about countries, doing whatever. But what social media has done, it's created a whole industry of talking about certain things that perhaps people didn't even think about 20, 30 years back. You know, just videos on how you're feeling, where you are, and the one that probably my biggest bugbear, just when people take shots of food every meal they've had. I cannot see the day they die that any of their family member is going to give a rat's ass what that person ate for the 70, 80 years of their life that they took pictures of every meal.
Sure.
Or that the obligatory whatever they, you know, I just sometimes it's nice, it's cool, whatever. But I think people have lost their way. Ultimately,
Do you feel like
it's sad in a way.
Yeah.
And people are gonna say, "Well, you're doing the same thing. You're on social media," but I feel like I'm making a comment on something, doing something.
Yeah, you're trying to make a difference in the world. I think that, like, when it's interesting, the older that I've got, the unless I go to like a really special place, I don't often take out my phone anymore, and I try and enjoy the moment and the meal rather than sharing it. Or if I do, I
Don't
don't
even get
share
me
it
started on that.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that. Every time I go anywhere, most of the people I'm with, they've got their phone and they're looking at the event through the phone, and I try to explain you're missing the essence of what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you want to watch it on the phone, you could have done that at home on YouTube.
Yeah.
What was the point? Let somebody else record it and send you the video, or find it on YouTube later. But if you see it and watch it in real time, you're never going to get a 180 degrees sort
Of course.
like, you know, when you go on an African safari, when you watch a live show somewhere, when you go to a big event, you're taking in all the sight, sound information from all around you. A camera cannot do that.
Yeah,
It's
100%. It's interesting. The next trip I'm going to go on is an African safari, and when I was speaking to him to organise it, I said, "Can I organise my own videographer and photographer so that I don't have to take out my phone and he can take all the photos of the
Unless
animals?"
you're a
That's the
David
best way.
Attenborough,
Yeah.
and you're going to be there for 20 years, you're never going to capture it.
Yeah,
so
of course.
just put it in your pocket and enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I can tell you, because I've been on a few safaris.
were they?
And amazing, absolutely amazing. And you're never going to get the essence on a video. It just doesn't work. And you've just got to stop trying to impress all your friends and family. I've just been here. Fine.
No one
Okay,
gives a shit at the
great.
end of the day,
Well,
right?
They probably do, and they probably think that your See, it's all based on the likes, right?
Sure.
It's all based on, wow, amazing, excellent. Oh my God, that was so amazing. You're beautiful. Oof, right? Everything requires a comment.
Yeah.
Like the whole self-confidence is built up from the social media. So the social media is basically your best friend. And if you ask anyone, who do you know on the social media? Like 20 people. The other 20,000 of them are unknown.
No.
And I can say openly on my social media, I don't know nobody. I'll tell you that right now. I don't have any friends.
Yeah.
I'm a lonely guy. I sit at home. I just come here once a week or once every month to
And
make
just
this
work.
video.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I get to speak to anyone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm sitting in my house like a hermit. This is my only interaction with the public.
I was going to ask you, talking about obviously the social media stuff and having they're never able to enjoy the moment, and you're your own business owner, and we haven't never really touched on it. I think if we did, it was like when we first started this, is what do you do in your business, or what do you try and regiment so that, because whenever we speak, there's always another challenge that you face within Clint Gold, or when you're trying to set something up new. How do you basically put systems in place so that you're able to get over that, and how you're able to, whenever I see you, you're like, no, I've had this problem and I've dealt with it again. There is never an unwavering flicker of doubt in your mind. Even if there's a humongous problem, you're like, yeah, I'll deal with it. What is it that you do that other people could do that makes you so successful?
You've got to be able to handle pressure. Most people, they feel like a lot of people don't want pressure. Number one, they feel like if you get pressure, oh, you're pressurizing me. This is too hard. It's difficult. It's not for me. All these things need to go, literally out the window. You need to be a problem solver. You need to be calm. You need to take. Sometimes don't talk before you've had to think about it, because obviously something you said you can never take back. But ultimately, if there is a problem, you've got to just take your time. Business is always fluid. Everyone always says if you make a decision, stick by it and don't change and chop and change. And I used to agree with that to a certain degree. And I'd say once you've made a decision, no matter how wrong it is, I'll make it right. But when you've done business,
Yeah.
and you keep going in the wrong, it doesn't turn into a right.
Yeah.
And that's just BS advice. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Be humble enough to eat the humble pie and move away. Apologize if you have to apologize. Change if you have to change. But be dynamic, be fluid, be sharp. If you have to change direction, and sometimes you've got to make a U-turn and just deal with it. And if you don't, that's when you're going to have a problem. So just and don't be over critical on yourself.
We like that. We like that's good to know. I want to finish on a couple of just one point. Obviously, it's now October. It's now October, September, right?
End of September.
It's the end of September coming into October. What have you seen? Because you've been here a long time, Nick. How are you seeing the Dubai economy change, and how are you seeing Dubai in real time change in front of you for the better or for the worse? Now that it's getting a little bit cooler, it's the first day that I can actually walk outside. I'm like, it's not so bad.
Oof. I can tell you in the last 1 year, things have got dramatically expensive. We're going to be paying corporate tax of 9% very soon. We're going to have perhaps other changes that come into play, all probably pressured by the OECD or FATCA or G20 and all the powerhouse economies of the world. But ultimately, I think this economy is still booming. There is a shortage of houses apparently, and things are still being built. There is amazing developments happening in Iraq. We're having a casino built in 2025. All the gaming licenses have gone through. They've issued a new gaming license as well, I believe, for Iraq, Ras Al Khaimah. So that's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be like a Vegas on steroids. So, within an hour and 20 minutes, we'll be able to drive up to Ras Al Khaimah.
It's like driving from LA to Vegas, sort of, but a bit shorter.
Shorter. And we'll have access to probably all the main big names. I won't mention them, but I'm sure they're all going to be there. And I'm sure, they used to say, the light bulbs in Macau can dim Vegas. I think here will dim Macau and Vegas collectively.
Amazing. What's
and imagine we have huge influx of visitors from Russia, China,
especially now,
all over Asia. Why wouldn't you be here for? If you're going to go to Vegas in that searing heat, if you're going to go to Macau, that tiny little island off the side of Hong Kong, or you're going to go to the small principality of Monaco to gamble, Dubai's, UAE, United Arab Emirates, is a much better option, isn't it? You've got Dubai, Abu Dhabi, then you've got Ras Al Khaimah, and it's an easier place to just hang out. You've got all the things you need over here.
They're making it the new place to be. One thing I was going to ask you, because corporate tax affects, let's say, you and I both. Do you think that the corporate tax is a big pain, or do you think it's something that they're putting in place because they want to pump more into the economy? What's your thoughts on it?
I think ultimately it'll probably, some industries will inevitably slow down, but over time it'll recover. Nothing immediately will surface. Like there's going to be a crunch in a lot of industries. There's going to be changes, and people will move on and adapt. And if you think about it, 9% corporate tax is better than a lot of other.
No income tax. It's 9% on after 365, and it's in effect now. Correct?
I think it starts next year. It's already started, but I think I'm not a
sure
tax specialist, but from what I know, it starts in your next financial year.
Okay, super.